Welcome back. And now for the news in detail. We start from Syria, with 10 rebels have been killed in Russian airstrikes on Syria's northwest Hama province. Monitors said Russian warplanes targeted rebel positions in the villages of Al-Zakat and Talmale in the north of the province. They said over 2,000 government soldiers and rebel fighters have been killed in intense fighting in Idlib and Hama since April the 30th. Moving on to the US, which has described Iran's offer to hold talks as a trap, similar to the one that led to the 2015 nuclear deal. In an interview, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Washington will not accept terms President Donald Trump believes to be disastrous. This comes after President Hassan Rouhani said Iran is ready to hold negotiations on the pact if the US withdraws unilateral sanctions. Washington has granted a visa to Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif so he can attend a UN meeting this week. This comes after the State Department reversed its decision to impose diplomatic and financial curbs on Tehran's top diplomat. The European Union's Foreign Affairs Council will meet later today to discuss ways to reduce tensions in the Gulf. Iraq's stability is another topic up for discussions at the Brussels meeting. In a joint statement issued ahead of the conference, Britain, France and Germany repeated their support for the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran. It says European signatories of the pact will encourage Iran to keep its pledges. The signatories say they are deeply troubled by recent confrontations in the Gulf and deteriorating US-Iran relations. The 2015 agreement to limit Iran's nuclear activities in return for reduced economic sanctions has floundered since the US withdrew in last year. A protester has been shot dead by Sudanese troops during renewed protests near Khartoum. The killing took place during demonstrations against the delayed signing of a power-sharing deal between civilian opposition and the military. The opposition boycotted the scheduled signing of the agreement on Saturday because of outstanding differences with the ruling military council. The civilian opposition said a deal must first be reached on a constitutional declaration to determine the powers of the ruling council. The Transitional Military Council and Oppositional Alliance agreed on a power-sharing deal on July the 5th. Turkey says President Trump has the authority to waive any sanctions the US could apply after Ankara's purchase of a Russian air defense system. President Tayyip Erdogan says the US needs to find the middle ground to end the dispute. He says Turkey bought the S-400 missile to guarantee peace and its national security. The first shipment of S-400 parts arrived in Turkey on Friday. The US has threatened to expel Ankara from the F-35 program over the purchase of the Russian missile system. Washington argues that S-400 is incompatible with NATO's defense network and could compromise the F-35. Qatar has opened its newest and largest Coast Guard base on its east coast. The move comes amid increasing tensions between Iran and the United States in the strategic waters of the Gulf. The base is spread over 640,000 square meters and was inaugurated by Prime Minister Sheikh Abdullah bin Nasser bin Khalifa Al Thani. Interior Ministry officials say the new port will provide protection to the nation's strategic offshore assets such as oil and gas facilities. Qatar is home to Washington's largest Middle East military base. In a sad and unfortunate incident, 9 people have been killed after their light aircraft crashed in northern Sweden. Authorities say the plane was being used for a skydiving trip and there are no survivors. What caused the accident is still unknown. India's second ever mission to the moon has been postponed because of a technical snag. The Indian Space Research Organization said the launch of Chandrayaan-2 was called off an hour before the launch because of safety concerns. India conducted its first lunar mission, Chandrayaan-1, nearly 11 years ago. 7 people, including 6 soldiers, have been killed after a building collapsed in heavy rain in India's northern state of Himachal Pradesh. The state government said 6 more people are feared trapped under the rubble. Rescue officials said 17 soldiers and 11 civilians have been rescued. Millions of Muslims in India's northeastern state of Assam are living in constant fear under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Modi's BJP renounced the state citizenship of over 4 million Muslims. Details in this report.
Immigration has been a sensitive topic in Assam since colonial rule and continues to be so. The citizenship bill proposed by the ruling BJP disowned the population that was forced to migrate from Bangladesh in 1971. Reports say over 2 million could be left with nowhere to go, as the mostly illiterate population has no way of proving their origin. Indian Home Minister Amit Shah has tagged them as enemies of the state.
Our biggest achievement is that within Assam, we implemented the NRC and identified these infiltrators.
Born in Assam, 71-year-old Mohammad Rahat has recently been declared a Bangladeshi infiltrator for failing to produce documentation. Fearing deportation and persecution after being called an infiltrator, he is still in a state of disbelief.
I am Indian. How can they force me to leave the country? I was born in Assam, but how can they call me a Bangladeshi? I'm shocked at this. I still don't understand this. What is this law?
Madhubala Mandal has been held in detention cells like a criminal for not being literate enough to prove her ancestry. Over 900 Muslims are languishing in Assam's 6 detention centers that can only be described as India's version of Auschwitz. Hindu hardline parties in Modi's coalition have called for mass deportations, although Bangladesh has refused to accept any.
Well, South Asia is under the grip of heavy rains these days as monsoon storms and their resulting floods have claimed the lives of 85 people across South Asia over the last 4 days. Nepal has been the worst affected, with flash floods and landslides killing 60 people and injuring 30 others. Nepal's Home Ministry says 30 more are missing. In northeastern India, officials say at least 14 people have died and over 1 million people have been affected by the flooding. In Bangladesh, 12 people, most of them farmers, have been killed by lightning. Moving on to China, which is currently battling to save itself from a rising tide of trash. Shanghai alone produces 26,000 tons every day. The city has launched an ambitious recycling program, but there are complications. More in this report.
China is home to 1.4 billion consumers, many of whom are gaining purchasing power. While this may be an economic success, it is also swamping the country in garbage. The issue is straining municipal services nationwide.
We really needed a really big push, and I think the government really realized that, and there's really a sense of urgency to this.
On the 1st of July, Shanghai launched China's most ambitious waste recycling and processing program, but there is confusion over rules as well as fines for infractions.
Of course, it is a bit of a hassle. Sorting waste is a bit inconvenient. For example, when I'm dining at home, the napkin you wipe your mouth with belongs with dry waste. I used just put it mixed in one bag with leftover bones. That was okay. Now you have to separate them.
Last week, a woman was arrested for assaulting a volunteer over trash disposal-related disputes. Despite this, many citizens are standing by the government initiative. China produced only 30 million tons of waste in 1980 compared to 210 million in 2017. The World Bank estimates that the country could produce as much as 500 million tons by 2030.
Well, disposing of trash has become a serious concern for the world these days. Now moving on, the first case of Ebola has been found in the city of Goma in eastern Congo. The health ministry has warned the virus can spread quickly in the densely populated areas close to the Rwandan border. It says a patient was diagnosed with a deadly virus in the eastern city of Goma after he interacted with Ebola patients in an area near Rwanda. The patient has been isolated to prevent the virus from spreading. Goma has been preparing to tackle Ebola for a year, but setting up hand washing stations and keeping public places clean In West Africa, Ebola killed more than 11,000 people in an outbreak between 2013 and 16. In France, American motorcycle manufacturer Harley-Davidson has organized a festival at the Morzine ski resort. At least 20,000 vehicles and 60,000 bikers have met up to admire their rides and swap stories. A roaring parade of Harley-Davidson motorcycles with leather-covered bikers is dazzling festival goers. The Morzine Harley Days get-together is just one of the events organized in France by the US bike maker. The company is in the process of diversifying its business by going electrical. The event is rejuvenating the Morzine resort with stands and cafes overflowing with tourists. Talking about the most loyal friend of humans, dog lovers in Brazil are training their faithful friends to become medical assistant dogs, helping doctors and patients in local hospitals and clinics. Child patients, the elderly, and the people with depression are especially fond of the furry bedside helpers. More in this report.
This lovable golden retriever is Juka. 3 years ago, this dog passed a series of tests which qualified her to work in medical institutions. Today, she has a fan following of patients and elderly people who wait for her to visit them every week.
The assessment of medical assistant dogs consists of a series of tests. For example, they should not be frightened by noise and they must be docile and react well to any behavior of the patients, including being suddenly grabbed by them.
All the necessary precautions are taken before a dog is allowed into medical settings. Owners are required to thoroughly clean medical assistance dogs before they can enter a hospital. That's apart from the disinfecting of the animals, which they're required to go through upon reaching a medical facility. Children respond to them particularly well.
We work with medical and nursing teams to see which children are eligible to participate. The selected children can get out of bed and increase their interaction with people around them and participate in the assistant dog activities once a week.
During activities, children can also play the role of doctors and use medical props. The kids can be seen forgetting their own illnesses as they engage with their furry friends. Only 1 in 10 dogs qualifies for medical assistance duty.
More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned with Indus News. Lows and the highs of the business world now. China has reported its slowest quarterly growth in 27 years. GDP growth slowed to 6.2% in the second quarter, reflecting an impact of the trade war with the US. The world's second largest economy grew 6.3% in the first half of the year, in line with economists' expectations. The Statistics Bureau says China's economy faces a complex situation with increasing external uncertainties. The country's stuttering rate of expansion has raised worries about the potential knock-on effects for the global economy. Most stock markets in Asia have gained ground after investors drew confidence from China's economic growth numbers. Mainland Chinese shares rose after data showed China's GDP growth slipped in the second quarter but stayed within the market expectations. Japan's Nikkei 225 and Hong Kong's Hang Seng indices also enjoyed modest rises. Australian shares slipped 0.5%, while South Korea's Kospi was mostly flat. Reacting to Chinese data, oil prices fell marginally in Asian trading. On to soccer now. Algeria and Senegal have reached the final of the Africa Cup of Nations. Algeria defeated Nigeria by 2-1, while Senegal took 1-0 victory over Tunisia. Playing at Cairo International Stadium, Algeria's Riyad Mahrez scored a late winner to lead his side to the final. Nigerian William Troost Ekong's own goal provided the lead to the opponents in the 40th minute of the match. Striker Odion Igalo equalized for Nigeria later. In another dramatic semi-final, Senegal edged past Tunisia, courtesy another own goal by defender Dylan Braun. Both sides had penalties saved in regular time before Braun headed the only goal of the game. Senegal will face Algeria in the final on Friday. In British culture, spitting food is thought of as rude. The English town of Wickham has been rebelled against etiquette by turning the talent into a sport. Let's take a look at this report.
A sport was born in 1971 when a schoolmaster caught some pupils amusing themselves by pinging their schoolmates with peas. Peas are shot at a dartboard smeared with putty using a pea shooter from a distance of 12 feet. Contestants say this is way more technical than it appears.
So your puff has to be consistent. Otherwise, if you puff too hard, then you'll raise above the bullseye. If you blow too low, then you'll drop down below it.
There are no restrictions to technology, provided the pea is propelled by blowing with the mouth.
So you've got, for the outer ring, you've got 1. For the middle ring, 3. And for the middle, 5.
Contestants try to stick it in the bullseye with every puff. Defending champion Ian Ashmead says the selection of peas is a deciding factor.
The peas this year are not round, and what we're trying to do is select bags of peas from the previous 2 years in the bottom of the pea bag, the box where you select your peas, to try and get the best round peas. That'll be the thing that will be the winning and the losing this year, is the pea selection.
Enthusiasts from all over the world participate in the Endearing Championship every year. It is the 49th year of the event. The championship is open to the public and anyone can enter.
Final.
And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For further updates, stay tuned to Indus News.